Vasistha continued. Action and the doer of the action arose spontaneously in the Supreme Being at the same time, even as flower and its fragrance arise simultaneously. However, it is only in the eyes of the ignorant that the creation of the jivas appear to be real, even as only the ignorant see blueness in the sky. To the enlightened, the expressions jivas are born of Brahman and jivas are not born of Brahman are both meaningless. We've been having an exposition on how individual souls, jivas, arise in the undifferentiated absolute Brahman through the cosmic mind of Brahma. And as I've said before, we need to take all that with a pinch of salt, and that's what the Yoga Vasistha is saying. Jivas are born of Brahman, jivas are not born of Brahman. Both statements are meaningless. And you wonder, why go on about it in the first place? All this talk of individual souls and jivas. I suppose because it was a concern of the ancient mind. They thought in terms of jiva, of it, the individual soul, which gets recycled through various reincarnations. And it's something which a lot of people still believe, even here in the West, in some form or another, perhaps not so well defined, or only vaguely believe that. So there's probably all sorts of versions of this notion that there's an individual soul that carries on after death, and we're not really interested in that. Only for the sake of instruction is the dualism provisionally accepted, otherwise instruction is impossible. After having posited that jivas are born of Brahman, it's pointed out by the teacher that since the effect is non-different from the cause, jivas are non-different from Brahman. All these appear to be born of Brahman, even as fragrance is born of flower. And they re-enter into Brahman even as one season enters into another. It's basically the notions dissolve. We talk about aspects of existence, aspects of creation even. And as we look into it, we see that they don't have an individual nature. They're all aspects of the one consciousness. With every species of being that manifests itself in the universe is simultaneously born its natural behaviour. It is only their ignorance of their own essential nature or self which leads to such behaviour or action as to cause reaction in a later birth. So we're still getting the teaching here of karma and reincarnation. So after having put aside the notion of jiva, we're being asked to take on board the notions of karma and rebirth. I think we just have to kind of look at this on an inner level in terms of our own thought stream. One thought gives rise to another, or leads on from another, and what's the emotional impulse that's driving our thoughts? Well, this is the karma. This is our karma. This is the emotional impetus which drives us on to believe in ourselves from one moment to the next. It drives us on to believe in a notion of ourselves from one moment to the next. It's what distracts the attention from being with itself. It's what takes the attention into external objects or external notions, or notions of an external world. It's what takes the attention into our daydreaming or whatever. That's the karma. That's the reincarnation. The reincarnation of a notion of an individual self from moment to moment. Rama said, "Holy Sir, truly the declarations of sages whose minds are uncoloured constitute scripture, and they who are pure at heart and whose vision there is no division are regarded as sages. The immature person can hope to see the light of truth only with the aid of a scripture and of the knowledge of the nature of an enlightened person. Holy Sir, we see in this world that the seed is born of a tree and the tree grows from the seed. Is it then appropriate to say that without the seed of previous karma, diverse beings are born of the absolute Brahman?" It might be appropriate, but all we're saying here is that there's a lot of stuff going on, and different stuff does different things. It's like the water in a whirlpool. Every bit of the water is different, but it's all part of the whole pattern of the whirlpool. Vasistha replied, "If you observe carefully, O Ram, you will see that it is only when the mind is involved in the action that there is the extension of the action into its own fruition. Hence, mind is the seat of action. Even so, when the cosmic mind manifested itself in the absolute Brahman, at that very instant the natural tendencies of diverse beings and their behaviour were born, and the embodied beings came to be regarded as jivas. There is no division between mind and action. Before it is projected as action, it arises in the mind, with the mind itself as its body. Hence, action is nothing but the movement of energy in consciousness, and it inevitably bears its own fruit. When such action comes to an end, mind comes to an end too, and when the mind ceases to be, there is no action. This applies only to the liberated sage, not to others." So action is nothing but the movement of energy in consciousness. Action is to do with the attention. It's where the attention is at. And unless the attention is centered on itself, then we just get this automatic chain of consequences. The attention going from one thing to the next without much awareness going on at all. Just an ongoing sequence of our attention being hijacked by one thing and another. So we could say when such action comes to an end, in other words, when the attention is resting in itself, mind comes to an end. And mind is that restlessness of going about all over the place. And when the mind ceases to be, there is no action. Now, when the attention is on itself, you can still act. It's just that you're not doing it from this restless point of view based on the mind, which constitutes our likes and dislikes. We're not chasing, we're not being motivated by craving and by aversion. We're just getting on with what needs to be done. And when you're getting on with what needs to be done, in this sense we can say there's no action, because action in this sense is to do with satisfying our cravings and our aversions, and that kind of action leads to further consequences, at least to further actions basically.